Archangel Michael reveals, your mother always knew the truth hidden in your family. She tried to prepare you. Her love still speaks through peaceful signs. This is what she hoped you'd discover, my child. When you look back, you realize there were moments your mother seemed to know the path you were meant to walk long before you ever understood it. She didn't always speak directly about what she sensed, yet she held a steady gaze, a knowing softness, a patient silence. You may remember the way she looked at you when situations felt too heavy for words, or how she offered reassurance even when she couldn't fully explain what she felt. That wasn't distance. It was discernment. There were things she saw forming long before they ever reached your awareness, and at times you interpreted her quietness as indifference. Yet now, as life reveals certain truths, you can finally see how her silence held you, how she was giving space for time to complete its work. Some people love loudly. Others love through the way they wait, the way they shelter you without ever announcing what they're sheltering you from. Stay with me here. Don't rush past this moment. You are remembering through a safer lens now. You can sit with those memories without feeling confused or wounded by what was never spoken. Soon you will see why that matters, because clarity finds you only when you are ready to receive it with peace rather than panic. Maybe there were family conversations that never reached your ears, or truths that seemed too large for your younger heart to carry. Maybe choices were made that felt unfair, yet you now see they aligned you with protection, not withholding. Your mother wasn't withholding belonging. She was guarding timing. You were not overlooked. You were preserved. And now, as you reflect, something rests differently inside your spirit. Your breathing may soften. Your shoulders may loosen. A warmth may move through your chest as though someone is untying knots you didn't notice had formed. This is the beginning of clarity. This is the moment when what once felt like absence reveals itself as intention. She didn't always have the language for what she sensed, but her posture was her prophecy. Her patience was her message. Her stillness was her way of keeping you safe until life could unfold without unnecessary burden. You don't need to reinterpret every decision, or rewrite every memory. You simply need to let meaning rise gently from the places that once felt closed. Sometimes understanding arrives not as a loud announcement, but as a natural unlocking. And soon, in a quiet moment, the pieces will align, not through urgency, but through peace. Memory, understanding, compassion, and softness gather like light returning to familiar spaces. And what once confused you will reveal its kindness, shaping you into someone who now sees clearly what was always being held for you. And when that clarity settles, you will honor what was given, what was shielded, and what was quietly blessed on your behalf, knowing it shaped you more gently than you ever recognized before. You were deeply loved always. Before anything settles inside you, pause and breathe, because presence always begins with a quiet returning home to yourself. Release the air gently, then take another breath, slower than the last. Allow your shoulders to lower slightly, allowing tension to fall like dust from clothing. Stillness becomes the doorway where your heart becomes available again, more open than reactive, more steady than scattered, more grounded than reaching toward peace now. Imagine Archangel Michael not distant, but near, like strength settling around you in invisible armor. Not a shield that isolates, but reassurance that you are held. Many describe a warmth near their back, an ease in the chest, a slow dissolving of fear they cannot explain. Let that possibility soften you. Let the idea of protection become permission to rest from hypervigilance, even just within this breath, becoming quietly yours. Notice what happens when you allow stillness rather than demand clarity. Your body speaks when language fades. The mind rushes, but the soul waits, poised like morning light before it fully breaks. When thoughts scatter, bring them back gently, not scolding, just gathering. Awareness is a kind shepherd. In this sacred awareness, burdens loosen, and you remember you are not alone, not abandoned, not carrying everything without unseen support now. Many have felt that unseen support when life hardened or hearts tightened. They sensed peace interrupting fear, not loudly, but quietly, like truth dissolving fog. Some remember a moment when they almost surrendered to discouragement until something gentle strengthened them again. That strengthening has presence. It has brightness. It has grounding. When you allow yourself to breathe into that awareness, protection becomes more recognized than imagined, more welcome than questioned. And so, imagine Michael's protection not above you, but surrounding you like a quiet room within yourself. Imagine safety that requires no defense, no explanation, just acceptance. Allow your jaw to soften, your breath to deepen, your brow to release its tension. Relief does not arrive through force, it rises when resistance rests. That resting is courage. That releasing is wisdom. And wisdom is always gentler than fear, returning softly. In that softness, heaven feels nearer, not because distance changes, but because awareness widens. You notice blessings that were always present. You feel supported even though circumstances remain the same. Nothing dramatic is required, alignment is rarely loud. It shows up as calm thoughts, clearer choices, patient responses, and steadiness where overwhelm once lived. That steadiness is guidance. That clarity is peace revealing itself rather than needing to be earned. So breathe again, deeply and slowly, because protection is already present. You do not have to seek it. You simply recognize it. When worry rises, treat it like mist, passing through rather than settling. When thoughts speed, answer them with stillness. Let your spirit remain open. Let peace be familiar, not foreign. When you rest in that awareness, the heart listens differently, and what once frightened you cannot command you anymore. And from that awareness, your next step becomes gently illuminated. There are truths that arrive only when the heart is mature enough to receive them, and this was one of those truths. She carried pieces of it carefully, not because she wished to keep you outside the circle, but because she understood that premature information becomes weight instead of wisdom. What you once interpreted as distance was protection, and what you believed was secrecy was actually tenderness wrapped in silence. Emotional safety doesn't always look like explanation. Sometimes it looks like quiet shielding, letting life unfold slowly enough that it doesn't overwhelm you all at once. There were dynamics, relationships, choices, histories that belonged to more hearts than yours, and revealing them earlier would have only created confusion. She knew how to delay disclosure until truth could land gently rather than bruise. You may have wondered why certain conversations ended abruptly, why eyes shifted away, why questions drifted unanswered. It wasn't neglect. It was timing. When hearts are still forming, too much truth can fracture more than it frees. She sensed that, even without using many words. Listen closely, she was not hiding belonging from you. She was guarding belonging around you. She carried quiet burdens so that you didn't have to absorb them before your spirit had resilience. There are memories of her holding tension in her shoulders, sighing in rooms where no one else understood what rested behind her silence. That was not secrecy, that was stewardship. She carried it quietly so that you would be ready when truth would heal rather than harm. That readiness is forming now. The weight that would once have startled you can now rest differently, landing not as disruption but as clarity. This is why certain understandings reach you only in adulthood. When identity stabilizes, truth becomes illumination rather than heaviness. So consider this: not every withheld story was a locked door. Some were bridges still being built. Some were chapters unfolding behind scenes so that when revealed, they would empower rather than unravel. It was never about limiting your access, it was about preventing your heart from carrying a load that wasn't yet aligned with your strength. Stay with this awareness. Something is softening already. Perhaps the questions you asked long ago no longer feel urgent, because the answers rise more naturally now. Understanding settles where defensiveness once lived. Compassion expands where confusion once stood. Irregular pieces begin fitting without forcing. That is healing disguised as revelation. Soon, you'll see the wisdom of her timing. Soon, clarity will feel like affirmation rather than disruption. And when it fully settles, you will not resent the silence. You will recognize that silence held you, sheltered you, protected you, and waited for your strength to grow into the size of the truth that was always approaching. There were days when you wondered why certain people didn't show up for you, when invitations were not extended, when affection seemed reserved for someone else, and you questioned your own worth because of it. You replayed moments in your mind, asking whether something was wrong with you, whether you were too quiet, too emotional, too complicated, too different. If this resonates, stay with me. Because what you interpreted as being unchosen was often the evidence of divine prioritization operating quietly on your behalf, protecting you from what would have drained you, rather than nurturing you. In those seasons when your phone didn't ring, when gatherings happened without you, when conversations continued that you were never included in, it was easy to believe you were being rejected. Yet rejection wasn't the root. Preservation was. There are connections that collapse before they form because attachment would have caused wounds deeper than loneliness ever did. You didn't miss out. You were spared. You may remember watching love bloom elsewhere, wondering why you were passed over. But sometimes being overlooked shields your heart from building loyalty to someone who never intended to honor you. Sometimes distance becomes protection before betrayal ever reaches you. The divine often blocks what you would later spend years untangling. Stay with this. Allow your breathing to soften again. There were moments when you walked into rooms and felt invisible, yet your invisibility was not insignificance. It was insulation. There are environments where visibility would have made you vulnerable to jealousy, manipulation, comparison, or exploitation you didn't yet recognize. You thought you were unnoticed, but you were being hidden until strength formed, until discernment matured, until you could enter relationships without shrinking yourself to remain accepted. You were never unchosen. You were preserved for alignment rather than proximity. You were shielded from being claimed by people who could not carry your heart with honor. And the ache you carried, thinking something was wrong with you, was actually proof that your spirit was wired for belonging that would not distort your identity. Think back to those emotional thresholds. The times you offered kindness that wasn't reciprocated. The times you tried to prove your worth. The times you accepted crumbs because you believed crumbs were safer than emptiness. Yet emptiness was making room. Loneliness was stretching capacity. Silence was creating space for connection that would not diminish you. Soon, you will realize that absence was not neglect. Absence was preparation. And what once felt like abandonment will reveal itself as wisdom that guarded your heart until it was ready to be held properly. When that realization lands, your past no longer speaks rejection. It testifies protection, and you finally see that every withheld relationship, every unavailable person, every overlooked moment was shaping you for something that would not require you to shrink to be seen. There are seasons when everything feels paused, when progress moves slowly, when prayers seem unanswered, and it is easy to assume something has gone wrong. You may have wondered why doors remained closed even when your intentions were pure, or why certain hopes never bloomed when you felt ready to receive them. Waiting can feel like stagnation, like life has forgotten you, like growth is happening for everyone except you. Yet waiting is rarely stillness. Waiting is preparation disguised as delay. What you call delay, heaven often names alignment. Listen gently. There are answers that arrive only when the soil of your life is stable enough to hold them. A blessing delivered too early becomes a burden, not a gift. Relationships that land before maturity often collapse under expectation. Opportunities that show up before wisdom cause exhaustion, not expansion. Divine timing protects you from planting seeds into ground that isn't yet nourished. Think of how nature unfolds. No flower forces itself open before the sun warms the petals. No tree bears fruit before its roots deepen. Everything aligns through readiness. You, too, are unfolding through readiness. If this resonates, stay with me. Because soon, peace will feel familiar again, not because everything changes instantly, but because timing is no longer measured by urgency. It is measured by alignment. When life seems paused, your spirit grows in unseen ways. Discernment strengthens. Boundaries become clearer. Old wounds lose their ability to dictate decisions. Clarity replaces confusion. You stop settling for what drains you, and you start recognizing what honors you. That shift is progress, even when nothing visible moves. Authentic readiness prevails quietly, slowly, delicately. There were seasons you thought you were behind, yet you had been ahead in growth. You could not see how aligned you truly were because results had not surfaced yet, but transformation was happening from within. Divine timing allows you to meet opportunity with emotional steadiness rather than desperation. It ensures that your blessing arrives when you can sustain it. Not briefly. Fully. Breathe here. Feel how release replaces resistance. Timing that once frustrated you now begins to feel wise. The future is not rushing at you. it is unfolding in rhythm with your maturity. Soon, peace will feel familiar again. Not event-based peace, but inward peace. The kind that does not collapse under uncertainty. The kind that no disappointment can erase. There is a version of you that exists on the other side of readiness. You will enter situations without fear of losing yourself. You will listen without anxiety. You will love without shrinking. You will commit without abandoning dignity. Alignment creates that version. Delay reveals her. And when everything aligns, you won't question whether it is meant for you. You will recognize it by peace. Not intensity. Not urgency. Not scarcity. Peace arrives as confirmation. And when it does, every waiting season that once felt like suffering will reveal itself as preparation, shaping you into someone who now receives without fear and holds blessings without trembling. There are moments when something familiar appears, not loudly, not forcefully, but gently enough to make you pause. A song plays that she once hummed absent-mindedly while cleaning the kitchen, or while folding laundry, or while driving home after long days. It doesn't arrive because you're searching for it, it finds you when your heart is softened enough to remember without pain. Sometimes it comes through a phrase someone repeats, one she often said without explaining why it mattered. Those echoes do not demand attention. They invite tenderness. They invite presence. There may be numbers that show up at unexpected times, 1111 on a receipt, or 555 glowing on the dashboard clock. You don't chase meaning within them, yet peace forms when they appear, like reassurance greeting you quietly. This isn't urgency. This isn't symbolism that presses against your spirit. It is acknowledgement, like a soft hand resting lightly on your back, reminding you that what shaped you still blesses you. You might dream of places tied to her memory. Not dramatic dreams, but gentle ones, the kind where you remember laughter, warmth, long drives, ordinary mornings. Dreams that bring comfort rather than longing. Dreams that don't disrupt sleep, but settle you. When you awaken from them, you don't wake with emptiness. You wake with steadiness. That steadiness is alignment. That steadiness is legacy reshaping itself into something you can carry forward. Sometimes the legacy arrives through aromas, subtle and familiar. A scent of something baked, or the fragrance she wore sparingly, emerging without a source. It doesn't overwhelm. It simply passes through like a breeze, reminding your spirit that nothing rooted in love disappears. And sometimes it comes through your own voice. You repeat a sentence without realizing it was one of hers. You offer advice that echoes her tone. What you once resisted becomes your own wisdom now. Memory transforms into embodiment. Stay with me. Discernment matters here. Meaning does not need to be hunted. Signs do not require urgency, interpretation, or pressure. They meet you in stillness. They speak through peace, not through demand. And when a sign brings agitation, that is not alignment. Genuine alignment calms. It steadies. It brings clarity rather than impulse. Think of how often she understood timing and how often she waited before speaking. Signs behave the same way. They arrive only when the heart is receptive, when clarity does not overwhelm, when recognition strengthens rather than confuses. You do not collect signs. You receive them. You do not chase meaning. Meaning settles. And in those pockets of recognition, legacy arrives like a thread stitching together fractured pieces of identity. Not to bind you to the past, but to carry forward what was honorable, wise, and tender. A legacy does not ask you to repeat every pattern. It invites you to continue the ones rooted in truth. Her voice becomes guidance through memory, not through demand. Soon, you will recognize that signs are reminders, not instructions. They do not tell you what to do. They remind you of who you are. And when that recognition settles, peace deepens, and what once felt like noise becomes alignment woven gently through your present life. There comes a point where you begin to recognize that not every opportunity is meant to be received, not every invitation is meant to be accepted, and not every person is meant to have access to your heart. Discernment grows when you stop rushing into what merely looks promising and begin watching how something feels within your spirit. Panic pulls you into decisions that fragment you. Peace guides you into choices that strengthen you. When peace leads, dignity remains intact. When urgency leads, identity becomes compromised. You may remember seasons when attention felt scarce, so you accepted whatever affection was offered. You may recall situations where someone's excitement convinced you to move faster than your intuition approved. But maturity teaches that nothing sustainable requires you to abandon your sense of worth. Reciprocity is not something you earn. Reciprocity is something you witness. Look closely. Those who value your presence will show consistency, not intensity that evaporates the moment you stop giving more than you receive. Healthy discernment doesn't demand hostility. It simply observes without rushing. It asks what alignment feels like rather than what fear predicts. When someone's presence brings steadiness rather than confusion, that steadiness becomes confirmation. The right opportunities will not require you to shrink, to apologize for existing, or to silence your needs. Alignments honor you. Imbalances drain you. Stay here with me. Boundaries are not walls, they are doorways that open only where respect exists. You do not block people out. You filter based on peace. If someone consistently agitates your spirit, if their words bring tightness to your chest or heaviness to your thoughts, that is not your fault. That is your inner wisdom acknowledging misalignment. Peace testing is not emotional dismissal. It is emotional clarity. Before you enter any commitment, slow your breath and ask yourself whether your body expands or contracts. Expansion feels like calm, like space opening. Contraction feels like pressure, like your heart stepping backward. Peace is not passive. Peace is a teacher. It reveals whether presence is safety or performance, whether interest is genuine or seasonal, whether connection is rooted or fleeting. Discernment also teaches timing. You may feel something sincere, but sincerity without readiness leads to pain. Let people show character over time. Let consistency reveal intention. Let reciprocity prove investment. When someone protects your peace, they demonstrate value. When someone disregards your boundaries, they reveal their limitation. Alignment requires patience. But patience prevents regret later. So breathe again. The choices ahead of you are not random. You have permission to evaluate without apology. You have permission to pause rather than explain. You have permission to withdraw from what no longer nurtures you. Nothing aligned will punish you for protecting your heart. Nothing meant for you will require self-abandonment. And soon, peace will become your filter rather than desperation. Awareness will deepen. Decisions will feel lighter. And when you move forward, it will not be from fear of missing out, but from confidence that what you welcome into your life has already proven itself through dignity, reciprocity, and calm recognition. If you are able, place both hands gently over your heart, not as a gesture of strain, but as acknowledgement that this moment belongs to you. Breathe in slowly, until the air rises beneath your palms, and then release it with intention. Notice how the jaw relaxes when you stop gripping the moment. Notice how your shoulders lower without effort. You are stepping into sufficiency rather than overwhelm. You are letting your breath become the reminder that nothing sacred rushes. Nothing needed demands frantic energy. If you were sitting across from her right now, she would ask you to slow your breathing, not because she doubted your strength, but because she always knew peace reaches you more quickly when you stop trying to outrun what you feel. So breathe again. Let the lungs widen, and let the exhale soften you. If the eyes water, let them. Tears don't always signify sadness. Sometimes tears signify release. When you are ready, imagine writing down one sentence that anchors you. It might be, "I am safe to exist as I am." It might be, "I do not need to perform to be worthy." It might be, "Love that honors me will not disappear." Write what feels true, not what feels impressive. Truth doesn't perform. Truth simply stands. You might feel a loosening in your ribcage, or a warm pulse beneath your hands. That is not dramatic. That is opening. If thoughts begin to race, whisper gently to yourself, "I am allowed to slow down." When you whisper it, speak it like an invitation, not instruction. The mind responds differently when you speak softly. She would have known that. She always sensed that softness reaches farther than correction ever could. Now imagine placing beside you everything heavy, decisions not made, relationships unresolved, unanswered prayers. Not abandoning them, but setting them down long enough to breathe without carrying them. Notice how lightness feels unfamiliar yet natural. Notice how sufficiency shows up when urgency steps aside. Heaviness doesn't define you. It simply visits when you forget you have permission to release what isn't meant to be solved all at once. If you choose, whisper a prayer, not scripted, not polished. Just speak from the truth beneath your ribs. You can ask for clarity. You can ask for rest. You can ask to stop apologizing for existing. Whatever arises, allow it. When the breath deepens again, gently place your palms down in your lap, letting them open loosely, as if no longer gripping anything unseen. This openness symbolizes readiness, not pressure. It symbolizes peace returning to the parts of you that once felt scattered. You may sense the faintest calm expanding, like morning light arriving gradually. And know this, you don't have to rush back into anything. You can carry this ease forward. You can return to it whenever your spirit feels tight. And each time you do, you will remember that peace has always been available, waiting for you to slow down enough to feel it. There comes a moment when what once felt tangled begins to loosen, and you may not even notice it at first. The shift rarely announces itself loudly. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic revelation. It moves gently, like light easing into a room where curtains have finally opened. You will recognize peace not by excitement, but by steadiness. You will know a new season has begun because you are no longer chasing what does not reciprocate, no longer trying to make sense of what continually confuses your heart. Peace appears as clarity, not intensity. You will notice the shift when conversations feel lighter, when you no longer rehearse potential outcomes before speaking, when you do not fear losing someone simply by being honest. Mutual interest replaces pursuit. Reciprocity replaces striving. You are met where you extend yourself, not abandoned after investing your heart. That balance is the beginning of emotional alignment. Something inside you begins to rest because what is meant for you will now move toward you with equal effort. Stay with this awareness. In the past, misinterpretation created heartache. You misread silence as rejection, distance as dismissal, ambiguity as instability. But when peace arrives, communication becomes clearer. Instead of decoding meaning, you receive meaning. Instead of wondering what someone feels, you see it expressed through action. Instead of assuming you have to hold everything together, you experience mutual contribution. You no longer shrink to stay accepted. You exist freely, and acceptance remains. That freedom becomes evidence. Soon, you will wake and notice that your thoughts aren't rushing toward anxiety. Decisions won't require emotional negotiation. You won't have to trade dignity for connection. You will feel a grounded certainty that does not depend on circumstances behaving perfectly. Peace is not the absence of difficulty, it is the presence of clarity inside it. And when clarity grows, emotional storms no longer pull you into their center. You observe rather than absorb. You may also notice that your body responds differently. Sleep deepens. Breath releases. Your heart no longer tightens when uncertainty arises. What once triggered urgency now invites patience. You stop proving yourself. You stop apologizing for needs. And relationships begin to form around mutual well-being rather than survival. Peace also reveals itself through timing that no longer feels pressured. You will not rush milestones. You will not scramble for answers. You will take steps without fearing collapse. And when invitations appear, emotional, relational, or spiritual, you will know what is for you because peace follows it. It does not chase you, it accompanies you. Soon, peace will become familiar again. Not fragile, not conditional, not temporary, but steady. And when that steadiness settles, you will realize something profound. What once exhausted you was not love, not destiny, not alignment. It was fear disguised as longing. And now longing has softened into readiness. And when peace remains, you will trust the flow of your life without forcing it, and what is meant for you will stand, not because you chase it, but because it arrives aligned. He wakes to a soft morning, not rushed, not hurried, easing into the day with a quiet certainty that once felt impossible. The air is still, sunlight presses gently against the window, and before he moves, he notices how absence of anxiety has replaced the restless urgency that once woke him like an alarm. His body no longer braces for disappointment. Instead, he rises with steadiness, feeling anchored rather than unsettled. He walks into the kitchen, makes warm tea, and instead of replaying conversations that once fractured his confidence, his mind settles into peace. He is no longer collecting clues, decoding silence, or predicting withdrawal. Something has settled, something that cannot be forced. Across the table, her laughter arrives freely, not strained, not measured, simply honest. She is not performing, not shrinking herself to stay accepted, not editing sentences before speaking. She asks about his dreams, not to evaluate them, but to honor them. He listens, not with pressure, but with curiosity. This is how connection feels when it is no longer born out of survival. Neither one is striving, neither one rushing to fix, to prove, to win affection. Presence has become the offering, and acceptance becomes the response. There was a time when days like this felt far away. When misunderstanding created distance, when affection dissolved before roots formed, when schedules collided and silence replaced assurance. There was depletion, exhaustion, effort without reciprocity. But restoration is quiet. It does not announce itself loudly. It shows up through kindness that requires no defense. It reveals itself in ordinary moments that would have passed unnoticed before clarity arrived. They walk outside, not to distract themselves, but to enjoy what is unfolding. The breeze moves gently across skin, leaves echoes small applause overhead, and something familiar returns to the heart, a sense of belonging without negotiation. They discuss future plans, and each suggestion is met with mutual care. Choices are no longer burdens placed on one person. There is space. There is respect. There is calm participation. Later, they sit near evening light, the house silent, not because something is missing, but because nothing needs managing. Silence becomes peace rather than distance. Presence becomes comfort rather than pressure. Their hands rest near each other, not clinging, not demanding, simply resting. Emotional safety becomes the foundation rather than the reward. In this scene, restoration does not erase the past. It redeems it. Insight softens what memory once tightened. They remember earlier seasons without bitterness, recognizing those experiences shaped compassion rather than fear. They are no longer holding life alone. They are sharing it, gently, honestly, without urgency. And though nothing extravagant has appeared, their hearts recognize fullness. This is what alignment looks like when it becomes lived reality. Not perfection, not promises, but peace that stays. Not intensity that burns out, but steadiness that remains. When he closes his eyes at night, he is not afraid of tomorrow. When she exhales beside him, she is not bracing for withdrawal. They exist in quiet assurance, replenished rather than emptied, and restoration becomes evident simply because nothing threatens to undo them anymore. Now, integration doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives through repetition, through gentle patterns, through small moments when you pause long enough to let peace remain instead of letting old habits rush in. Over the next few days and weeks, you may notice that familiar behaviors ask to resurface, the impulse to over-explain, to hurry outcomes, to shrink yourself to keep harmony. But now you have different awareness. Awareness does not demand force, it invites participation. When the urge to rush appears, breathe once, intentionally, and let that breath become a reminder that nothing meant for you requires panic. Integration happens when your nervous system trusts ease again. In the mornings, before you meet expectations, place your hand lightly across your chest. Not to correct anything, but to anchor presence. Whisper something grounding, "I am safe to move slowly." Let the words settle. Some days the voice will feel confident, other days it may tremble. Both are progress. Integration honors your humanity, not your perfection. As the weeks unfold, pay attention to reciprocity, not intensity. Notice who listens without interruption. Notice who supports without demanding proof. Notice conversations that leave you calmer rather than depleted. Reciprocity is not dramatic, it is consistent. As you see it clearly, your heart naturally shifts toward what nourishes rather than drains. That shift doesn't make others wrong, it simply reveals alignment and misalignment without judgment. Some moments may test you. Someone may present enthusiasm without follow-through. Someone may offer partial attention disguised as full investment. Old patterns may lean toward chasing connection. But now you pause. And that pause becomes power. You no longer need to seek completion outside yourself. You no longer need urgency to validate belonging. Your pause becomes a filter. And in that filter, clarity rises gently rather than urgently. Throughout the week, allow silence to be supportive instead of threatening. Quiet doesn't mean abandonment anymore. It means rest, integration, and emotional room to breathe. When your mind asks for answers too quickly, slow your pace, drink water, or step outside for 3 minutes. Those simple shifts retrain your body into peace without demanding emotional effort. Journaling can help, but write less and feel more. One sentence is enough: I am still learning to receive what honors me. Repeat that sentence on days you forget. Repeat it when old versions of you whisper that you must earn connection. Repeat it when discouragement tries to settle. Repetition becomes reconditioning. And at night, instead of replaying what went wrong, acknowledge what didn't drain you. Acknowledge where you held your boundary. Acknowledge where peace remained present. Small affirmations become anchors. Anchors become steady ground. Integration is not performance. It is allowing your healed identity to become normalized. And somewhere between this week and the next, you will notice something meaningful: decisions take less energy. Communication feels lighter. Relationships self-select. What once felt heavy is now manageable. Not because life changed dramatically, but because you no longer abandon yourself to remain chosen. When that awareness settles, peace feels like familiarity rather than reward, and belonging becomes something you inhabit rather than seek. As you reach the end of this moment, breathe gently and notice how the weight you carried earlier sits differently now. What once pressed against your chest like burden has softened into understanding. What you believed was something wrong with you now reveals itself as something that was being shaped within you. You are not who you were when you first began listening. You are steadier. You are clearer. You are more aligned with what honors your heart. What you carried has now met who you are becoming. Receive this blessing not as performance but as recognition. May peace surround you the way dawn surrounds the horizon, slow at first, then unmistakable. May clarity rise in your decisions, not through force, but through gentle knowing. May your relationships reflect reciprocity, steadiness, and genuine care. May your voice no longer tremble when asking for what you deserve. May your boundaries hold without apology. And may you feel dignified simply because you exist without needing to earn belonging. There will be days when memories return, days when unanswered questions call your attention again. On those days, may peace remain louder than confusion. May you remember that protection worked even when you didn't recognize it. What you thought was abandonment was often alignment. What you perceived as distance was often shelter. What felt like delay was often preparation. That realization is part of your blessing now. Allow community to meet you gently. If you feel led, share a sentence below, something you are releasing, something you are grateful for, something you want prayed over. You are not asking for validation, you are inviting connection. Your vulnerability becomes an open door for someone else to exhale. When others read your words, they may find their own peace in them. And when you read theirs, you may feel less alone than you ever imagined. Let this moment be a soft closing rather than an ending. You may return to these words whenever the heart forgets that clarity is available. You may read again when circumstances feel loud or when doubt circles your mind. Peace doesn't expire. It doesn't diminish when life stretches you. It remains as long as you return to it. So breathe again, long and slow. Place your hand gently against your chest if it feels comforting. Whisper something true. I am worthy of peace. I am allowed to take my time. I am guided with care. Let those words settle, not rushed, not rehearsed. Let them belong to you fully. And as you move forward, may peace walk with you, not ahead of you, not behind you, but beside you. May your path feel less heavy. May your spirit feel less alone. And may your heart recognize that what was forming in silence is now arriving with honor, and you are ready to receive it without fear.